All right, students. So today I'm going to do some notes um, about karyotypes. And so the topic that we're moving on to today is to now think about why it is that we have traits that are different from our siblings. So, for example, if you have a brother or a sister or a sibling, um, you probably look somewhat like them, somewhat similar, but you don't look identical. You don't look exactly the same. So the question is, how is it that how are you different? How do you become different from your siblings and whatnot? And this has to do with your chromosomes, and it's the same reason why, for example, somebody who is male and somebody who is female, like what makes them different has to do with chromosomes. So we're going to go through this process here together. And so this is going to go on page 22 of your notebook. We're going to call this karyotype. So if we remember from our last unit, we saw that, right, DNA, which is in the nucleus of cells, inside of the nucleus, we have our DNA, which is this guy here. DNA is very, very long. And so our body tries to be efficient. It tries to store the DNA in a form that's much more compact. And so the way that it does it is it wraps up the DNA in a structure called a chromosome. Oops. Chromosome. So if someone talks to you about chromosomes or they talk to you about DNA, they are talking about the same thing. They are one and the same. A chromosome is just the wrapped up version of DNA. So if you were small enough to go inside of a cell and then small enough to go into the nucleus, you would only see chromosomes. You would not see any DNA. Well, you would see DNA rather, but you would see it in the form of a chromosome. You would not see it as like this in this form. You would see it like this. Okay. So when one way to determine what the chromosomes of a person look like is to do a karyotype. And so a karyotype is an image of the chromosomes inside of a person. And so this is what a karyotype looks like. This here is a karyotype. And what it is it shows you the chromosomal structure of all the chromosomes of a person. And so what you'll see here, right? These here, all of these guys, all of them, these are all chromosomes here. Chromosomes everywhere. Okay. So, what you'll notice maybe is that so the chromosomes here are given in pairs, right? There's pairs of two. So what we say is that when you have a pair of chromosomes, and let me put in this image. So chromosomes, right? They look something like this, right? They look the same. We call these homologous chromosomes, right? Just like they are here in pairs, chromosomes. Okay, so they're homologous, right? They look exactly the same. You get one chromosome from each parent. So one of your chromosomes, one of the pair of chromosomes, right, for each of these, comes from your biological mother. So biological mother, and one comes from your biological father. Great. So you get two of each of these chromosomes, right? You get one from your biological mother and one from your biological father. Okay. So that's why these are all here in pairs. These are homologous chromosomes, right? One from biological mother, one from biological father. What's remaining are, so what we have here is you notice that some of them are not. So, right, these here all have pairs. So these guys, we call these autosomes. So the first 22 pairs of chromosomes, we call them autosomes. So these are the chromosomes that determine your height, your hair color, your eye color. They determine your characteristics. We determine your physical characteristics. The difference comes in looking at the last two chromosomes. So here you'll see an X and a Y, and these are not paired. These here are called the sex chromosomes, and they determine, right? They determine your sex. They determine male or female. Okay, so this is how we normally see, this is how we, or not normally, but this is how we typically see chromosomes set up for a person. So usually we see pairs, but sometimes we see different things. Sometimes we don't see pairs for these autosomes. Sometimes we see them see just one chromosome or we see three chromosomes. So if we only see one chromosome, we call that monosomy. Monosomy. So monosomy, and if we have three of them, we call this trisomy. So if they're not homologous, if we don't get homologous chromosomes, if we for some reason get three or get one, we have names for these. We call this monosomy. The word mono means one, and trisomy. The word tri means three. Great. So typically, we would look for homologous chromosomes. If we don't have a pair of two, we might see one or we see three. Um, okay. So what we're going to do is what you'll see, right, is in this person here, right, you see pairs. So these are all homologous chromosomes, homologous, 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 homologous. All of these are homologous except for 21. The chromosomes number 21 are not homologous. There are three of them. So this person has what we would call trisomy 21. Right, 21, the chromosome 21 has three copies. So this person has trisomy, we would say trisomy 21. You could even write that if you would like to, right? Trisomy 21. Right, there's three of these. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually look at the physical karyotype of different individuals, and we're going to determine if we see any of these patterns here. If we see just homologous chromosomes, if we see monosomy or trisomy. There are a few other things that might happen as well. So there are four potential reasons why you might not see homologous chromosomes. And these are because some different, what we would call mistakes, can be made in this process that make things different. So the first is called translocation. Translocation. So usually, we see a pair of like 19 and for example, here in 1919, right, these two chromosomes are homologous, they look identical, they look the same. However, what happens is that suddenly, for some unknown reason, part of one chromosome switches with the part of another chromosome for some reason. So this is called a translocation. So part of the chromosome that was on chromosome 20 now switched with part of the chromosome that was on chromosome 4. Weird. We call this a translocation. So, right, part of the chromosome switches with the other. That's one potential condition. It's called a translocation. Another one that we might have is what's called a deletion. A deletion. So normally, or typically rather, we would see chromosomes like this. So somehow, for some reason, part of the chromosome, the body just deletes it. It deletes that part of the chromosome. It's called a deletion. So part of chromosome is deleted. So all the genes that were on this part of the chromosome are now gone. The other condition we can get, right, if we can get a deletion, we can also get an insertion. So where on accident, what it does is it duplicates. So this, right, in this case, we lost this part of the chromosome. In this case, we duplicate the part of the chromosome. So now we have double the amount. We have double the amount instead of just one of them. So what we do is we call this a duplication. So we duplicate part of the chromosome. Okay, then one other case that can happen is this. So what happens here, right, is part of the chromosome that was like this, for some reason, flips in the opposite direction. It inverts. So we call this an inversion. Part of the chromosome inverts, switches. So what you're going to do is you're going to see these actual karyotypes. So you're going to see the chromosomal spread of different people. And what you're going to do is you're going to label them. You're going to find the homologous chromosomes. You're going to find if they're monosomy, if there's any monosomies or trisomies. And then you're going to look for these kinds of potential conditions that may arise. What is important to note is that when we look at these pieces here, one of the things that you might note, right, is that in all of these cases, one of the things that's really different is usually on the bottom part of these chromosomes, right? There's a top part and a bottom part of chromosomes. Just like we see here, right? There's a top part and a bottom part. So the top part of the chromosome is what we call the P arm. And the bottom part of the chromosome is what we call the Q arm. So you're almost always going to see these changes in the Q arm of the chromosome, not on the P arm. So what you're going to do, we're going to give you some boards with these karyotypes. You're going to arrange the chromosomes, and you're going to tell us how you see these differences. So one thing to note as well, right? Make sure that you're looking for these sex chromosomes as well. If we have two X chromosomes, so if we have two X chromosomes, when I say we, I mean biologists, have determined that two X chromosomes, if there's two X chromosomes, that person is female. They have the female sex. If they have an X and a Y, we say that this person is male. That is how biology defines male and female. The only difference is in the chromosomes that are present, right? Two X chromosomes versus one X and one Y. So we're going to be looking at this together, and hopefully this has helped.